So let's start. I want to say hello to everyone and thank you very much for all being here. We are very happy to have had the possibility to gather this group of fantastic people here and are very much looking forward to this talk. I'd like to just quickly give an introduction of why exactly we gathered here and what we'd like to talk about. So first of all, I'm Teresa Alten. I'm the film programmer of the Goethe-Institut Portugal in Lisbon, and I'm also co-curator of the German, Austrian, Swiss, Luxembourgian film festival that's called KINO, Mostra de cinema de Expressão Alemã. That will also actually tackle a few of the questions that we will ask here. And I'm the co-curator together with Susana Santos Rodriguez, who is also here, with whom we created the programs of the festival. So at the very beginning of this stood the fact that on the occasion of the Goethe-Institut Portugal celebrating its 60th anniversary this year, we wanted to not only look into the past, looking for memories, but especially also into the future of the society facing multiple changes and crises, and also look at the future, especially through culture. So with questions like, what visions of this future are here? Which utopias can maybe defy the narratives of crisis? And what new ways of artistic creation are there? And where do they actually lead us? So all of these questions actually we saw also reflected in the films that are part of the program of KINO, because they are about utopias and dystopias, about social questions that we really have to look at, and we couldn't not go on like this if we wouldn't, about things that have to change so that society can live on, about togetherness. Also about the fact to look at we have also to look at the yesterday so that we can see the tomorrow. And sure, of course, also about the fact that the future is also unconditionally female. So we'd love to talk about cinematographic futurology. And to do so, Susanna will first and foremost introduce each of you.
So as much as we can't really predict the future, the activity that names this conversation, that is futurology, is more about a ludic forecast that we challenged our guest speakers accompanying us today, based on the present and also past context inspired by their specific background. So we are joined today by Dennis Stormer and Marisa Meier, who are director and producer and both co-writers of one of the films programmed at this year KINO Festival. Utopia is the name of the film, and they are joining us from Zurich and Stockholm. We also have Fernanda Polacow, a Brazilian screenwriter, documentary, filmmaker, and sociologist, now based in between São Paulo and Lisbon. She wrote, among other things, Mosquito, the opening film at Rotterdam Film Festival in 2020, and is now joining us from Lisbon. We also have Welket Bungué, Portuguese-Guinean actor and filmmaker who already shows a very intense career and, among others, has starred in Berlin Alexanderplatz, the opening film of KINO's last edition, and is now joining us from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. And we also have Nuno Bernardo, an award-winning and Emmy-nominated writer, producer, and director, an author of juvenile novels, creator of Sofia's Diary, that has been adapted for television in several countries, and also director of Gabriel, his first feature that premiered in Locarno in 2018, and is now joining us from Dublin, Ireland. So welcome everyone. And I pass the word to Teresa again, who will share with us some of the thoughts that are all of the directors or some of the directors shared with us about the future for this edition.
Yes, because we actually, all of the directors of the films of KINO had to respond to us to the very difficult question, what does future mean to you? And I'll just read you a few, tell you a few of the answers as a kind of inspiration to start the discussion, the talk here. So for example, Alison Kuhn, the director of the KSU, said, future means trying to learn from the past, as uncovering old hierarchical powered structures and critically questioning them. Natalie David of the Sprayer of Zurich said, we need to rethink our point of view, so to take care of the nature, animals, people, genders, and religions. And all of these big questions can be answered by thinking creatively, thinking and working creatively, actually. Sabrina Zarabi from No One Is With a Calf said, I would wish for the future that gender and skin color would become irrelevant. Jana G. Wonders from Walchensee Forever said, the future is full of unknowns. Zoe Wittak from the film Jumbo said, the future is a constant moving soil, and hopefully it will keep moving, keep progressing, keeping an open mind onto the others and onto the world. And then Dennis Stormer, who is here, said that our now also directs the future, and all the decisions that we make today are decisions for the future. So maybe to kind of start going in that direction, as Utopia is also kind of, or a really also a futuristic film, but using actually the present. It's a future, you know, that feels quite present. It's actually about an algorithm that decides for us how and when we do grow up or not. So I would like to ask you, Dennis, and also Marisa, what maybe are the methods or formats or materials that you use to make the film Utopia that are futuristic, and why? Or maybe as a more general feel, and also for everyone, of course, what are these new forms of telling stories that you can use today and that you envision ahead?
Who starts now? Yeah, thanks a lot for this introduction and the question. I think there are two ways to think about the futuristic aspects. One is like story-wise, what the story is about, and algorithms, which a lot of people thought that it's going to be a dystopian science fiction kind of movie, when Dennis and I actually wanted to make a utopian and more parallel universe than futuristic, because we feel that it's already there, maybe not the algorithm in the way that we were showing it, but in other fields like online dating or music and certain apps, advertising and stuff like that. And we just used that for finding a job. We imagined, like, wouldn't it be great if there was an algorithm finding my dream job, so that I wouldn't have to travel to Australia to find myself and do a lot of internships and all that stuff. So this was the main idea, and the maybe futuristic aspect content-wise within the story, connected to these algorithms. But then also we were talking a lot about the production of the movie and how we want to actually produce, and maybe also different than what we learned that movies should be produced, like as in like hierarchy wise, for example. So we really wanted to open the field for improvisation on set for everyone involved to create this story, and also having flat hierarchies in terms of payment, like everyone received the same amount of money, and we wanted to at least have this gender equality, and we could have pushed that much further, I think, but those were all thoughts that we made and paid out in the end. I think.
I could maybe add that the whole stylistic or the universe that we created with Youthopia is using a lot of our youth times images, which are like kind of stylistic devices from the early 2000s, I would say, which are very outdated, but still, I mean, all the future is just reinventing stuff that has been there. So it could be some kind of way to describe a future, but as Marisa said, Youthopia is really more about the now. And if it is something, it's not a dystopia, it's a utopia, because as you say, I mean, that today, if you're not very ignorant, I think today's society is much more dystopian than this movie. Yeah.
True. Also, I think it's also interesting that Marisa said that you also used, well, something that you think should be the future. I totally agree with you. Doing the production in a more flat hierarchical way, and etc., and the payments and gender. You said that you think that it like paid out. How do you think that it paid out? And would you really say that it's a way that we could always produce film?
It was really, I didn't expect it the way it was in the end, and I was overwhelmed by it, I have to say, because at the end of the shoot, everyone came and said thank you to me. And this never happened before. And I remember when I started studying, and I had my first project, and I was kind of frustrated, and it was so stressful, and I didn't know anything. And I went to someone at the film academy, and I just told her, like, no one said thank you. And she laughed at me and she said, no one will ever thank you for anything as a producer. And I had to think of her when this happened now with Youthopia, because I think what we did is just we were open for compromise, which is not usual, because we have this image of that it's one genius or a bunch of geniuses who have this vision, and this is what everyone has to work for. Whereas in Youthopia, we were open to make it more togetherness production, because this is also the content of the movie. And everyone just felt equally part of the story, and also took responsibility. Like, I learned as in this project that people want responsibility, and they want to be asked what they think, and then also they enjoy working and to feel involved. And yeah, and this really, I mean, it was a small crew. I don't know if it always works with those big crews, and for some projects probably it wouldn't be possible and you need more structure and that stuff. But for this project, it was really it was just perfect if you trust people, and if you also question your own decisions, like you have a costume and then you think, I imagined this differently, but maybe that's also good,
Yeah, I'm sure that is. I don't know, maybe the others. Us.
Yeah, I would open the question
Yes.
to the others to comment perhaps on this idea of is it old-fashioned regard having this genius person, and is it a sign of times that we are now more focused on a collective environment and a collective creation? I don't know who could or would like to start. I don't know if Fernanda would like to comment.
Or already have had an experience like that, or very different on other projects.
Yeah, I have a question for you, for the two of you, actually, on the movie. I saw it and I liked it a lot. But then you can answer later. When you say what is it that people are getting from the movie? What's the feedback you're getting? more curious in terms of the generations. If you find that, you know, young people see and connect with the movie differently from, I don't know, much older people. And my question is because I kept thinking, if the young generation, they understand that those youngsters there, and you say it's very kind of old-fashioned already in terms of the looks, and do I don't know if they have seen that, because I can relate to what you said, like you created something that emulates maybe something from the past, but do young people relate to that? Do they see themselves there? So I was just curious. And regarding to collaborative working, I'm actually doing a movie now. It's a documentary, and it's kind of a flat hierarchy as well. It began with a friend that connected with me, Calaf, who is an Angolan guy. He called me, he said, he's an Angolan writer and musician. He called me and he said, I want to do something about that, but I'm not a writer for movies, and you are, so what do we do that? Then we started talking, and then we said, no, we need someone else. So we called Lolo, who is a Cape Verdean director. So Lolo came on board. We had no names, no titles, nothing. We just had a great conversation, and then we invited someone else to help with the production, but that person wasn't a producer, and we were all kind of the same, and we never mentioned who is going to direct it, who's going to write it, what's going to happen, never. And then we got some funds for the project, and then we went out to Cape Verde to shoot, and then we invited a cinematographer. She's an Argentinian. So we had a bunch of different people from different backgrounds, trying to find out what we were going to film in Cape Verde. We had a little bit of an idea, but we didn't. We had long conversations. It went super well. Again, it's a very tiny crew, very connected, and that was kind of one of the best experiences I had. We came back with an amazing material, and now we are collectively also trying to understand what we're going to do with it, because it's a bit crazy, because it could be lots of things. So yeah, in terms of a collective experience, I'm going through that right now, and I find it really interesting, because usually I'm a screenwriter. I write my stuff, or people call me to write for them, and sometimes I direct too, but then it's my stuff, very personal. So I'm finding it amazing, because then we have someone that knows a lot about music, and he thinks through music what it could be, and someone else thinks through imagery, but I think through narrative, and it's all, you know, we're learning from each other as we go as well. So it's been really wonderful. I think that's the experience I'm having right now with that.
Yeah, interesting. I don't know if perhaps Dennis and Marisa want to answer Fernanda's question.
And I don't know if I made sense on my question, though. I think it was confusing, wasn't it?
Probably
reframe it, right?
Since you answered, then I think lost track of the question again. So maybe if you want to rephrase it again.
Yeah, Dennis and Marisa, did it make sense, or do you want me to reframe it?
So I had the feeling the question was about can the young audience connect with the film, and can the old ones, and where's the difference? Is that kind of what you were asking? Yeah. So, and I definitely see a difference, but I can really, so it's really hard to target the young audience with an artistic film, but we definitely had young people coming to festivals and to screenings, and they were very much connecting with, just the whole lostness of growing up and getting out there, and all of a sudden you're supposed to take care of yourself and have responsibility and know what you want. That's the big thing. You all of a sudden have to know what you want, and that's supposed to be inside of you. And this idea of that there's an algorithm, and also this whole idea of a rebellion, yeah, young people could definitely connect with that in a way where I felt really like, yeah, that's how I felt back then. But we also, I mean, we showed this film to a lot of people, and most of them were not at this point in their life, and they, I think, had just a nostalgic feeling, and that was, I mean, that's also very much what this film is about. It's a nostalgic view on the future, kind of. So, but people look at it differently depending from where they are in their life, I think.
And I thought, sorry.
Go ahead.
I personally, I really believe in this collective sense of making cinema, telling stories, you know, especially because I think the technology and our way of living, somehow it's more and more depending on this crossing of cultures, of how do you say, ideologies, and as well about agendas, more intersectional agendas, more conscious agendas, you know. So I think making art, in this sense, a collective art, which is cinema, for example, or theater, it should rely on this idea of bringing people together and give them voice, okay, so that we can accurate and bring more complexity to what we want to say and how we want to do it. Of course, it's a challenge, a huge one, you know, because the political interests sometimes they are above, they are invisible, but they are above the how do you say, the very last framing of the art piece. So, and in this sense, I believe that if you want in future to make difference, or at least to change the shape of how we understand the cinema making, or more than that, I would say, like, for example, the social movements or engagements, you know, they need to be more, how do you say, available to listen and to learn, you know. I think the methodology Marisa and Dennis they adopted, it's important, and even more important that we are here now talking about it, and the movie can be seen, so that we can feel and see how does this, how do you say, this gathering can be portrayed through a film and can be discovered through a Q&A session, for example. You know, I'm idealistic and philosophical, but I decided to talk, to join you in your conversation, because this is what I believe when I'm producing, when I'm performing, or when I'm developing the methodology that I call self-portraying cinema, which is most of all depends on having the, how do you say, the flexibility and the know-how, the human know-how, to let people come to you, so that you can come to the others in sense of the territory, and in the sense of the culture, and in the sense of the inter-body relations as well. So I think that's important, that there is more and more people believing in this kind of, how do you say, intersection. Like Fernanda said, all the names she mentioned, I know them all, you know, and they are very rich people because they have a lot of experiences that sometimes, unfortunately, the conventional, the canons of cinema, of making cinema, especially in Europe, they don't open a space to bring these people and these disruptive ways of thinking and building narratives of making cinema, you know. And if we dare to talk about the future, I think this is something that we really have to keep having in our mind, because sometimes we project future as something that will come, but future is now. We are transversal to the time. That's why we think that we can use past things that happened in the past to project and to think about the future. This is just possible from my point of view because we narrate these different layers of time that we understand as past, present, and future. So, and we are doing it now. We are doing it now.
Yes, if I could ask one more question, Welket, before Dennis and Marisa said, well, I mean, with a small team, it was possible working like this. Maybe with a bigger team or another film that wouldn't have been possible, and you made it look like this, like you know what they're, you know what they're talking about. So I was thinking maybe with Berlin Alexanderplatz or other films, you have made the same or other experience, or maybe what do you think of this? Do you think it's possible to always work like this?
It's possible, but in another level. For example, Burhan Kurbani, he has been working with his own team crew that he itself calls them family. They did 3 feature films. Okay, this means that somehow his body of work is they work based on this idea of self-trust, and this works pretty well to make movies somehow, because they all know each other and they understand the aesthetic decisions, and appeals of Burhan or of the DOP. Okay, but if you look, what is the how would I say the genre and the type of film that we did? It's a type of film that involves a lot of production means, and resources and so on and so on. So, look, I'm not saying that what we are here bringing as a proposal, it's an utopia. No, because it's possible and they did it, But the thing is, we are bringing, how do you say, an experimental, in the sense of being something uncommon for the convention of nowadays of doing cinema, because if cinema aims to capitalize, to bring profit out of it, it's not easy to adapt itself in its making to what we are bringing here as a proposal, So yes, either we want to be with people, and either we want to do something which is urgent, which is to bring gender equality and diversity to the movies, or we want to make a movie that is based on the conventional sense of making it, which is you bring very well-known people and you pay them more because you believe that the movie will sell more because they are there, and you bring a DOP that needs to receive more because for him to be in your movie means that he had to quit many other works, So in this sense, we are within the capitalistic system, which is something very hard to avoid. But on another way, when we adopt this, let's call it this more collective or hierarchical flat way of making cinema, we are working collectively, and we are not just aiming to produce a film that must sell and bring outcome to the producers. We are more interested in building a new sense of community, not just within the cinema industry where we are placed in, but also outside of it, and this needs a special attention, because what we are talking here, if it is adopted to other, how do you say, to other fields, we are really working on building a better society. And this is something that I really take care, and they believe you too. You know, that's why you take the risk of making a movie that maybe will not be understandable will not be understood for the all strikes or ages. Like Utopia, I didn't watch it, but Dennis was saying that of course the elder people understand it differently than the youngest audience. Okay, because it's really very fragile to make cinema from this point of view, but I can guarantee you that it's intemporal. Okay, maybe the movie will mature with time, not just as a narrative, but also as a piece that was built on basis of this collective understanding. And I think at the end of the day, this is the most important. Really.
Thank you, Welket. I was thinking if we dive further into the more science fiction part of this thinking about the future, or not so much science fiction, but if we think of artificial intelligence or how new technologies are being incorporated into the ways of new ways of storytelling, I wanted to maybe ask Nuno if he could share a bit of his thoughts on how either he's incorporating or from his career from very early on new media into classical formats, and how does he see it? What is he planning now, using also these new formats of storytelling, and his thoughts on that, and all the others also.
I think in terms of the technology, nowadays the technology, I think it leads. Is everybody listening to me? Okay.
Yes.
I think. Sorry. I think technology now leads the production of cinema and television and the other moving images, art. I think we shift from this more manual, more like an artisan activity, because when we in the 50s, 60s, 70s, in the 80s, when we shot a film, we used to have mechanical cameras, we used to have the film, and nowadays the editing was made by hands, because you needed to put it in a stand back, and you needed to cut the film to make the editing. And nowadays, since the 90s, 2000s, and the world that we live today, everything is digital, everything is more industrialized, because there is almost no physical touch, because you have a camera, you touch the camera, but you don't touch the film, because there's no film. There's a hard drive, there is a card that records the moving images. And that, for one hand, take that element of the artisanship of making a film, of creating art, and make it feel, I think, less personal. For example, I was listening the other day a podcast, an interview with the DOPs, the cinematographers of that series called Succession. And Succession is a television series, but is one of the few, I think at the moment, one of the few television series that is shot on film. And the person that was doing the interview made a question: why do in 2022 you shoot a television series on film? Because usually you see directors like Christopher Nolan, or you see Steven Spielberg doing films still shot in film, but why nowadays? And he said, because Adam McKay, the director and the showrunner of the Succession, he said, because when I shoot digitally, the cameras start rolling, and because there is this perception that you shoot digitally and costs nothing if you shoot 1 minute or if you shoot 1 hour, because it's just space in a hard drive. He says that the art department still change props, the makeup still goes to the actors and do last minute checks. So there is this chaos in the set. And Adam McKay said, when I shoot in film, because everybody has this perception that film is expensive, that film has a limited time of 11 minutes by roll, so you can only shoot for 11 minutes. And he sees that the same crew, when you shot in film, everybody is more respectful of the process, because they know that it's expensive, because it's like a religion, or it's like a dogma. So everybody knows their role, and the DOP doesn't do last minute changes in the light. The props person doesn't go to change the props at the last minute, because they know it costs money. So for me, that made me think the fact that now, because we shot digitally, we edit digitally, we can shoot hours and hours, and there's no perceived cost on that. I think we lost that touch with this artisanship that is to create an art piece that could be a film, that could be a television series, that could be a short film, that could be something that has this meaning. And for me, as we see more and more the technology entering the world of production, and as there's also a side story, a couple of years ago, I saw a company doing a demonstration of a software application that they were running already, that basically you write a script and you put the script in the system, and you tell which the average budget that you intended for the feature film, and you say, who do you think will be the lead talent? And automatically it comes up with a suggestion of what will be the box office of that movie. And that for me is very scary, because it's like we stop making art, we stop making movies, and we are like making sausages, because we put the ingredients, we follow this formula, this recipe, and then something comes out on the other side. And for me, I think, picking in the previous question, the previous discussion, for me, cinema is the ultimate and the last collaborative art form, because I don't see any other art or any other expression of art where you have so many people collaborating together to create something. Because when you are a painter, you are alone, or if you do sculpture, probably you have a small team. If you do big sculptures, if you are a musician, probably you have 5 or 6 people in the studio. But when you make a film, and even if you have a small crew means that during the shoot, you probably have 20, 30 people. If you do a medium scale, you have 100 people collaborating, working together, whatever, if you have titles or not. But it's people that come up with their visions, with their ideas, and make what comes out of it completely different. And for me, that is the element that we shouldn't lose in terms of cinema, is that the fact that we are collaborating, we're not following formulas or not following algorithms, and also bring back, although we may still use, because it's cheap, it's more accessible, these digital meanings of production, but don't lose this notion of artisanship, that although we don't see the film, although we don't see the film passing to the camera, we shouldn't lose the sight of what we are doing. So for me, that's well, I would like to see the cinema moving forward, use the technology to somehow reduce costs, make it more efficient. And I think the fact that reduced costs makes that everybody now can create their own films. When I came out of film school, or when I came to university, I couldn't make a film because it was so expensive to make a film. And nowadays, everybody can make their own film, can have their own voice. But we shouldn't lose that track. And that side, that we need to bring that human element and that collaborative element that will make this an art piece, and something that has not just one voice or one side, but it has this amalgamation of the different voices that were used by the team to create this work of art.
Yes, apropos craftsmanship, I was thinking when you started talking about the program where you can put in the script and the actors and so on, I thought you were going to say that there's a program that writes a script for you. Does that also exist? And what is that? I mean, apropos craftsmanship.
There is, yes, because if you think about the classic narrative that is taught in all the schools, the writing schools. There's the classic narrative, and they have, you know, 3 acts, and they have, you know, the points, the turns, and everything. You load that into the program, and the artificial intelligence can create a script for you that and it works, you know, it works out. I mean, if you watch the movie, it makes sense. At least it touches the buttons that that usually you know, touch
Have
people.
you tried it out?
I think no, and I don't, and you know, I know. No, and I think it's weird, and also it works in terms of what Welket was saying, in terms of, you know, the model that we're used to. But I'm really interested also as a screenwriter in many other types of narratives, much more than, you know, the journey, the classical journey, the hero, and, you know, you go from A to B, and you just, something happens and you learn something, or you let something die and then you become something else, and what's the transformation. I'm much less interested in that, and much more interested in the humans behind it, you know, the feelings, deepening the human characters in the films. And I don't know if you can, for example, load in the, I don't know much about artificial intelligence. I don't know if you could ever put in a program like that something like, for example, a mother's regret of having kids, for example, in The Lost Daughter. I don't know if you get that, you know, that depth in the character. I don't know if that's possible. You can so the human part of the movies, of the characters. And I think we're in a moment thinking about diversity, thinking about other narratives, thinking about what should be talked about that we didn't have space for before, in this density of characters. I think this is kind of the moment where we can open the conversation about lots of very you know, untouched topics. And I don't know if the program could ever do that. Maybe it can, but I would doubt. I don't know.
Yeah, that is the question. Is that possible? Is that what we are losing when we're thinking of this kind of future, this computeristic future? Are we losing the personal, real side? I don't know if maybe some of the others have had some experiences with some kind of artificial intelligence and have like positive or negative, whatever that means, experiences about that.
I once was playing around with a prototype of an AI that it was like you could give it a task. So you would write, make a list of good reasons why to visit my grandma. And then it makes this list, and also write a short story about a woman having the regret of not having a child, for example. And then it writes this story. And it was a prototype, and it was really fun to play around with it. But what I realized is that, I mean, is to be expected, that we feed the AI with like majority views on the world or whatever, or who feeds the AI, and then the AI spits out what we fed the AI. And it is maybe smarter than one person as an individual can think. So it brings, from a lot of people feeding it, brings out something. So it's maybe smarter than an individual, but it's still us feeding the AI. So it's not coming up with something new, really. And it's also dangerous because it's coming up with stuff that is to be questioned, really, like racist point of views or whatsoever, or like stereotype pictures of women and all these kind of things. I specifically tried out this and figured out, wow. So it just took, because there are a lot of popular stories with macho characters, so it will come up with that. And that's why I think it's important to question who is feeding the AI and what is the aim. That I think it's interesting what Fernanda said about different or more complex stories, that, and I feel that really it's not only something that we as artists or filmmakers are thinking about as like maybe a minority of population, but I think really also the majority starts to be bored by this one narrative. So there's, I think, a trend. That's why series, I think, are very popular to watch now, because there it's possible to be more complex about characters and background stories, and that the evil person is not pure evil anymore, but has reasons to act like this. And I think people are very interested in it and are now able to discover this complex world of characters. And I feel that this traditional narrative is getting less and less popular. Also that it's not only one hero anymore who saves the world, but a collective. I mean, you see that already in Marvel movies, that somehow the writers figured out that it's too boring to have one hero nowadays.
But Marisa, don't you think that those narratives are getting more close to what, in general, this, how do you call it, mainstream audience wants and consume, you know? Because I believe that when we are talking about the old-fashioned narrative, we are not just talking about the form, we are talking about the kind of narratives as well, you know? And my question is, of course, Marvel is not the best, how do you say, example, because they stereotype so much the heroes, even if it's a collective going to save the world, you know, that maybe it will clash to what we are here saying that we want to see, not just in front of the camera, but also behind the camera, I think. But my question is, AI, you know, right? I have some questions, some doubts regarding it, and I believe the technology must, its main reason of technology is to help human beings to be more efficient and get better and better, you know, but we need to use it properly, not to manipulate. I mean, Isaac Asimov, he brought the rules about the robotics, for example. But what I want to say is that for many times, for many years, and cinema corresponded to certain logic of thinking, not just in the form, but also through the people who were able to produce it, you know. And at that time, the fact that the film is very expensive, for example, determines who can produce it and who are the people that they want to put in front of camera, and so on and so on. And nowadays, for me, the big goal or advantage, it's not just that the how do you say, the hardware, the equipment is more accessible to all of us, but is that we can convert our time to tell stories, relevant stories, engage with people. Because either we have money or either we have time. And this is the most important thing that we achieved. And sometimes people don't convert their time to something that should serve not just to them, but should be helpful to the others. And my struggle nowadays is to understand, because I'm trying to see if this craft that we understand as a craft, which is to making cinema from the artistic perspective, is it becoming or not becoming more and more entertainment? You know, because imagine if we are in a moment of a forced shift of taking cinema to the physical place, to the digital place, which is the screens on our computers. You know, this definitely means that the way they are defining the scripts and the way they are capturing the images on set are more, how do you say, concerned to the way that they will figure out in the screen. And this says a lot, because we are, some of us don't understand or don't feel it yet, but the way, for example, the series are being produced, they are more interested that the story can be well told in the frame of our computers, for example. And this, I think that this is also connected to the way that we read, for example, the videos on YouTube, the videos on social media, so on and so on. And this is something that I would like to share with you, to think if I am the only person who thinks that somehow the effort that people are doing, especially on doing series, for example, they are more complex. Yes, it's true. But they are most of the time entertaining us somehow, because they discover this formula that brings the feeling of something new in different contexts somehow. And I have some doubts with this, because of course I don't want to compare it with making cinema in the artistic sense, you know, because cinema to take risks, you know, and in the series I don't know what is the range of risks that they adopt, and they are working with certain formulas that have been working in the last 20 years, for example. And I would like to share this with you, because we are here saying that at the moment we still believe that we can make cinema and bring people together in a very particular way, that we would like to see others practicing it as well. But there is a huge wall of consumers and contents that I don't know how we can defeat it.
Yeah, this is one of the questions. You're absolutely right, is that on the one hand, we are, of course, as you said, Marisa, you're seeing that people want something else. But at the same time, there's this question of what is happening with all this consumer data. I mean, do we really, this thing of are you catered to with what you want, or are you being like manipulated into wanting what you're getting? What are the propositions that there are on the different streaming sites, and I don't know what. So there's so much, and there's also, I think, this question of that sometimes you don't really know, are you also the algorithms showing you what you already liked and what you will probably also like, so you always get propositions and tips of something that comes from something that you already liked. So you also, maybe there's also a lack of having the possibility to always get really new inspirations, and so a lack of knowing where does film really want to go or can go, or what do consumers want.
I just want to say one thing about that is I think that in the pandemic, one thing that I really liked, because we know that the algorithm, they give what we're supposed to watch, you know, it's notes, and they know the kind of the type of movies that you like, and they suggest for you, but it's not that you have, you know, of course you're free, but what you get is, you know, what we know, like the algorithm chooses for you. But what I think the pandemic did that was really good in my point of view is that the festivals, and especially the small festivals that usually screen movies that are really interesting and that you would never watch unless you would go to the festival, and who goes, it became, you know, available, and you could watch from many places, and then you could access different films that's not on your streaming and you were not gonna get access to. And then so you can watch now in Brazil there is a very a great festival called Tiradentes, it's happening now, it's going to be online, and you can access, you know, all the films. They're really great films. So I think this is something to think about. There are platforms that can make that available, and they exist already that you can pay for. And there are many platforms. There's a platform for, you know, African films. There are a platform for women, for films made by women, exclusive platform for that. But then there's this thing, who has the money to pay for all the streaming platforms, and then, you know, and the time, as Welket was saying, is it's, you know, time and money, all this crossing, and then the things that get media and coverage, and then, you know, I want to see that because everybody's talking about that. So Succession, who hasn't? So, you know, it's difficult. But I think the technology is in place, you know, to democratize smaller films and different films. We can have access to that we wouldn't otherwise with technology. I don't know.
But do you feel like to be creative, you need to isolate yourself at some moment from all this solution?
If you allow me.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think more than technology in terms of platforms, I think the future will be, and the future as it is in the present, I think we'll have two ways to access content, whatever is film, television, music, video games, news. There is, the one hand, you have the algorithm-based suggestions, and that's when you go to the Netflix, when you go to YouTube, or when you go to social media. These algorithms will be perfect to serve us what they think we like, meaning that they will serve us the same thing that we liked before. And they will analyze our reactions to content. They will not all analyze the what we picked, but the way we reacted. So if you start watching a series and we abandon that series at episode 2, that will be taken into consideration. So for me, the algorithm will be evolving to be as specific as that, not just because I like a movie with Tom Cruise, they will suggest me all the Tom Cruise movies. No, we will be more intelligent than that. And then on the other hand, and you see that more and more, you will have the human curated content, meaning playlists. For example, in Spotify, playlists are more important than the what Spotify is presenting you through the algorithm, because you identify someone that you like their musical taste, and then you follow that person on Spotify because you like the music that person like. And in terms of cinema, the film festivals are the biggest curators of cinema in the world, because their curation is done by human beings, that they have a strong opinion, they have years of experiences in selecting films. And then you like this film festival, or you like the other film festival because you like the work of that curator. So for me, what technology will enable is that these curators, for example, film festivals, they were very local, because a film festival, as we knew from the past, is a film festival that happens in one city and was limited to the audience that lives in that city or in the surroundings. Now with technology, a film festival can be a global event. So if I like the curation of that film festival, of the curation of that film critic, or the curation of that person, I could access the content that person is suggesting. So for me, that we will have these two competing way of accessing content. One is AI, that is these algorithms that will get smarter and smarter and smarter, and will keep giving us what we already like. That, in my opinion, we will get bored by after a while. And then we'll have the human curators that will surprise us. Sometimes we'll not like what they offer us, but they will offer something new, something with a line. And for example, when you talk about TV, for me, TV will be that. It will be more than just a linear experience, but will be this brand, this curation. So when you access the news, you usually pick one channel because you like the way that channel, that broadcaster addresses the news, instead of different broadcasters. So for me, that will be the way technology will be used. That is, AI will get smarter to suggest content, and then tools will be made available to human curators, to human beings, that will allow them to create a selection of content, whatever, film, music, books, other art pieces, and make them available at a global scale that people around the world could find out something new.
But Nuno, if that is a consequence of the, how do you say, the technology evolving, right? How can we look for the future of cinema? Because these festivals that are now converted to digital festivals, they should happen physically in person, or should they replace themselves to this digital version? Because it's interesting that Tiradentes now can be watched, the full programming can be watched online, okay? But the festival, when it happens, you know this better than I, when it happens physically, it brings people together, it opens the space for the in-person dialogue, which is something that we have been losing, you know? And the theaters, the cinemas, they work, you know? And I would like to share this because 2 years from now, 2 years now, we are talking more and more about this. And I have seen that certain festivals or let's say showcases, they really adapted their show to the digital format, you know. But
I'm not saying that one should be instead of the other. For me, it's cinema. For me, in cinema was always it's a collective experience. As a filmmaker, as a moviegoer, I prefer to see these communal experiences because it's so different to see a movie, not just because of the big screen and a good sound. Just seeing a movie with other people is so different than seeing you in your couch with your TV.
When you make a movie, you make it for the big screen and for the public.
But for me, what I was saying is that a film festival or other types of curation, they could benefit from the digital. For example,
for sure.
You should not have the physical, but if you have that event, if you select those movies, if you have access, if you have your branding, if you can multiply that, you could reach a different audience. For example, I've been following the American independence since the 90s. I'm lucky. I'm original from Villard-Conde, and we have a short film festival in town that started in the early 90s. And with that, I was able to find new filmmakers. I was able to find Al Hartley and other independents. And for me, since I was my late teens, early 20s, I was always had this following and obsession with these directors that they were not released in Portugal. So for me, the Sundance Film Festival, this generation of filmmakers, they were not made available. I couldn't see them in Portugal. Only a few films were released in cinemas. Nowadays, a new generation that identifies with American independence, African films, Nordic films, they probably will not be able to travel to and go to these festivals. But if they know about this director, they know about this subculture or about this trend in cinema or about the genre of films, but they can travel to the event, they know that if they access the website, the on-demand service, they could benefit and discover new filmmakers on that genre or on that selection that the festival is. For me, that is important. It's just giving, enlarging your audience, because I agree with you. We have these two types of movies: the ones that are made to make money, the big commercial blockbusters, and then we have the other movies that struggle to find an audience. So for me, technology should be used in ways that our niche audiences become bigger and bigger. Not just for the money, but because we have something to say, we have a voice, we have a story to tell, and we are very sometimes I say very selfish as writers, as creators, because we want to talk to as many people as possible. So it's important that our small movies get a bigger audience.
Yes, and I think this kind of question is important because people are listening to us. Otherwise they think that we agree that movies mostly should pass to the streaming on demand. And the real thing is that the way we are relating with the movie watching experience is pretty different than the way we used to do it before. We as a filmmakers or people from the film industry, I think we should think more and more about it, especially if we consider ourselves as a independent filmmaker somehow, because that cannot, push us down to do it. We should keep doing it. Yes, because the format of this in authorial cinema making, if it doesn't correspond to a certain language, mainstream, it's more and more placed in this niche kind of cinema.
I think what you're talking about, the niche, there's a chance also with AI that we are, I think, all are against in a way, but I mean, it's a tool like any other tool of technology. And you're talking about like our films have a small audience and we want to reach somebody. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that would like to see this exact film, but there's no way to reach them. And I guess there could be a possibility that this niche films could be brought to niche people with AI, even like it's, or with curators, but it's also just a possible part of making technology into like giving you the chance to distribute your work. But I agree to Nino, there's a lot of ways doing this. And what I also found was quite sad to see a lot of festivals just go online and like trying to compete with Netflix or something like this, which is eventually not going to work when they're just making the kind of same concept, but also that there pop up so many festivals, and that has happened before live also. And I'm just wondering who's supposed to watch all of these things. And like the big idea of gathering at a festival is like vanishing because there's so many of all these things that you're like, there's two people there, and at the same time this happens, and there's two people there, that I feel like often I feel there's too much to watch, there's too many movies being made, there's too many places things are distributed, and I have no idea what I should look at because I feel overwhelmed by it also. Yeah.
It is something that I can also relate to very much. And Dennis, I was thinking, wasn't your film, Dennis and Marisa, also part of an intermedia project? I mean, didn't you also not release the film only in cinema, but tell me more about it.
So there's the idea of the algorithm that is like the movie is based on that there is an algorithm reading everyone's data and giving you the perfect job and deciding, are you responsible enough to be a grown-up? And where does it read the data from is, for example, Instagram. And so our main characters, they try to like fuck up the system and they never want to be adults. So they just post shit on Instagram to destroy their career. And these characters and what they post is like their Instagram accounts with their content, which the idea is like, that's how the algorithm would see these characters. And what they post is non-linear to the film. It's like it's kind of a bubble that happens here and there, and you can see certain things that when you see also the film, then you think like, this must have happened here, or this is over there. I know the place again, and I know this character from that scene. but it's very like the percentage of what makes what is very small. It's just it's like a little gag of making the movie a bigger experience than it is, and an experiment trying to reach a younger audience, which I would say stays an experiment, because we definitely don't have the resources for like targeting them through Instagram. But it's like a model. It was like an idea to make the whole experience more round, and also bringing people from the phone to the film and from the film to the phone.
I think it's not only about not having the financial resources to target young people with those Instagram accounts, but also it's quite hard to sell a movie on Instagram. Also, it's what is really sellable on Instagram. It's like products you can immediately buy and you wait for them a day or two, and then it arrives at home and you're happy, and then you never wear it and buy the next one, or whatever, this capitalistic system. But a film, I mean, we will probably still try to do it with the small budget that we have, but yeah, I don't know how much this, like our movie, fits in the capitalistic system of consumers. I mean, this is the big question, right? How can we make people who actually like Marvel movies, how can we show them our movie, and eventually they would like it too. And yeah, then AI could help, but also sometimes I'm dreaming about a random algorithm, something that I would definitely use. I push the chat roulette button on Netflix, and then something surprising comes up and I am forced to watch it. I would like that, but I think not so many people would like it.
Yeah,
On Netflix or on other platforms that yeah, to go towards what you said, Welket, to like more niche things. This is what I would, because I think Netflix now actually has this function, but I would like to, I still feel like what pops up is maybe not, I wish for something more surprising, because it's this platform. This is why it should be possible to have other platforms, right?
Yeah, the thing is, artificial intelligence, it's technology. We have said it before, and it can, or it should be used for everyone that has access to it, you know. And I'd have to say that, how do you say, the potential of it will be as much as you have resources to use it and to program it to what you want, you know. And this doesn't mean that I'm completely against it, because imagine this strategy that Dennis embodied on the whole project of making film, because it was part of the project itself, the way of distributing the film and bringing people together. It's very, how do you say, it's good, it has value, you know, when it's, how do you say, it's thought that way. But at the end, I believe that artificial intelligence, it knows just, which is not just everything that we know as human beings, because it's written and it's programmed. And we, as human beings, our subconsciousness is bigger than our consciousness, you know. That's why when we decide to watch something, or when we encounter the other person, we are lead to unpredictable things and unexpected things, you know. And I believe that if this algorithm would have this quality, this characteristic of human beings, yes, we would be more surprised with things that you know, that would be unexpected to us. The thing that I would like to say is that this conversation for me, it's the most important here is that at the end, I reinforce this idea that the most important is to make cinema, to make it happen, you know. And fortunately, if we don't depend just on the how do you say, the wage, the salary, the budget that that comes out of making cinema, we can have the time to think and really choose what is more important to us. Because if we are how do you say, workers from the industry, it's even in the conventional sense, it's even harder to avoid and to reshape the way we want to do cinema and for who and how, you know. As much as we keep independent somehow our position as filmmakers, more we can implement this idea of making films that we really believe and be with people. Because we know the strategy to sell movies, still nowadays, they hardly connect or match to our perspective of doing cinema like this, of being you know, but we should keep doing it, because I believe that in a certain moment, people will fed up when they start to look at movies as they were watching videos from TikTok or from something else, you know. These artistic movies, they work a lot with the subconsciousness, in the sense of we bring things that in a conventional space, they would not be placed in a movie, you know. But when everything is how do you say, so squared and clear to everyone, sometimes I think that I lose the sense of dreaming. I lose the sense of conceiving the utopia thing, you know, because everything is so clear, everything is so artificially intelligible, you know.
I think there's a chance with that artificial intelligence can mirror what happens today, because the analysis, what you talk about, that everything gets more and more boring because that's what everybody is just looking what they like. I mean, that's what happened in the TV for years and years. Like, and that's what happens in funding institutions. People see, which film is going good, we fund that one. Not always. I have witnessed different things, of course, but I think it's like the question is just, it would be really nice if this, like, because the idea that an algorithm gives you the thing that everybody wants and will make it eventually very boring and flat to everybody. I think that's a very clear image that people can understand, but I think it has been like this before. And it's just a question, do you utilize now an algorithm to just make it worse? Or do you start thinking and say like, no, we make very different decisions and we just decide ourselves what we do. And we don't care what the audience, what the big mass of every people thinks, because we will make a film and maybe some people will like it, maybe others not.
Dennis, sorry, I don't know if I agree with you, because the artificial intelligence is something that was built as an inception, you know, and we have been working to build it, to make it happen, you know. Of course, television came as a mass, how do you say, something that massively framed our way of thinking and so on. But the accuracy of how the artificial intelligence works towards ourselves, it's scaring. Because nowadays, for example, we all use something which is called a cell phone, you know? And even if you use your cell phone for your self necessities, somehow, you are connected with other people. And it's very hard to avoid what are the trends, because people are being catered, you know, just to relate with those who like the same thing like them. And this is this is a consequence of this algorithmic system, you know. That's why I think that we are in a different path now, and therefore being conscious of how thin is this place where we are, you know, because imagine we were suggested to share our data for free for many years. up to now, you know. And nowadays that there is more people writing. Mr. Novak, for example, he writes about this media and the data. What is the name? Is the big data and so on, you know. But some of us are getting more conscious about it, and therefore I think we can sit and talk about this, but in this dimension, which is for me is more drastic than where we were, for example, before the 2001.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, and I think it's really terrible that there is so many tools and so much technology that we use every day, but we don't know what we use. Like that's it's like the dimension of a cell phone is so huge, and we just are unaware of what technology we use. And it would be really nice if people became more conscious about what they do, because like feeding Instagram, for example, or watching their commercials, I don't use so much social media anymore, like for good reasons. But all the times I did it, I felt like, okay, now I've been watching your commercials and I've been putting up content. So, and that's what I work with. So I maybe should write you a bill to Instagram for my 5 hours I spent watching commercials and creating content to this platform.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting because you see a lot that there are a lot of things that scare each of you and each of us, but at the same time, going towards kind of like a conclusion, because we have to come to an end soon, but there's also a lot of things that actually give hope. So we have on the one side the worrying of capitalism and the algorithms and the missing dialogue by not going to the cinema together, and the technology that are using the data. But at the same time, there's the hope or the possibilities of accessing content from differently or more than before and worldwide, of the technology evolving also on one side, even if sometimes it's difficult to still see it, but towards something that is helping to share more. And also the wish and possibility to come back to with what we began with, the collectiveness, the intersectionality, the diversity that is coming up more and more, the humanness and the craft and creativeness of cinema in general. All of this is actually evolving and seem to give, well, at least for me, hope. Maybe some of you still want to say something, last words, or something about this, maybe hope.
I'm talking too much. Ladies first, please.
Maybe what I had to think about for Utopia as an example, or something that worked for us. I mean, Dennis and I really struggled in the beginning to find funding for this movie, because it was so experimental and not perfect at all and rough, but this is what we wanted to do. And so how to convince people, and we found Telfilm, production company, renowned production company in Switzerland, who were just trusted us and let us do whatever we wanted. So and without them, I think we couldn't have gotten the funding in Zurich, which was also a special funding, because they give a certain amount of money. They give 80% of the total budget, but it's supposed to be a small budget so that you can make the movie fast. The Fast Track Award, it's called. So, which was also a perfect fit and was open for this idea. And we found super nice co-producers in Frankfurt who also trusted us a lot. And so at the end, we found people that were renowned and already had a name and could convince other decision makers just because they trusted us. And I think this is maybe also the way to go, that you find old-fashioned people, because if you look at the portfolio of Telfilm, you wouldn't expect Utopia to be in there, to be honest. So if you can attach yourself as a little rebel or whatsoever to bigger decision makers, I think you can undermine the system maybe, and you will always find, in our industry at least, I think you will always find people who are open for this.
I think looking for undermining the system is a great kind of motto or way to go and think about possibilities of the future that is actually the present already. Yeah. Thank you very much, all of you, for all of your input and the conversation and talks between all of you. It's a huge pleasure to be able to talk about this with you, and I feel like we could continue for several hours. Maybe we'll do a second episode sometime. No. Thanks a lot for all of you. We wish you a great day and wonderful, inspiring new projects.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks
It
for
was
being here.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was
Bye.
great.
See you
Nice to meet you
soon.
guys.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.